Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. You're all very welcome to this afternoon's event, Plastic-Free Picnics with Rozanne Stevens. We're absolutely delighted that Rozanne has agreed to do a workshop with us this afternoon on this absolutely beautiful hot July afternoon. Just to let you know before we go any further that as this is a webinar, none of your faces can be seen. The only people that can be seen are ourselves, the panelists. It is being recorded at the moment, but that is just for social media purposes or for Facebook or for YouTube, so people can see it at a later date, just to let you know that. So you may be aware or may not be aware that July is Plastic Free Month, and this is a global movement that tries to help people to make our planet plastic free and to help our environment along. So in Dublin City Libraries, my name is Paula Brennan. I'm a librarian in Dublin City Libraries, and we are always interested in hosting any kind of event that will help to sustain our environment. And when we decided to do this event, we thought of Rozanne Stevens, no better person to be able to do this workshop this afternoon. Rozanne, I think most of you may know her already, but she is a chef, she is a food writer, she is an author, she is lots of different things, and she is going to be talking to us this afternoon about plastic-free picnics. She's going to be giving us some fantastic recipes, and she's also going to be giving us some tips on how to be more environmentally aware. Now, you will have noticed that with the Zoom link that you got, that Rozanne very kindly has actually made up her own ebook, and she is sending that, or has sent that, to all of this afternoon's participants. So this is something unique to yourselves that you can have. If anybody has any problems downloading it, you can contact me. paula.brennan@dublincity.ie is my email, and we'll try and sort that out. So just the other thing I wanted to say to you was that if you have any questions, just pop it into the questions rather than the chat, and at an opportune moment, I'll put the questions to Rozanne. So enjoy this event. We're all really looking forward to it, and I'll hand you over to Rozanne. Okay, Rozanne?
Excellent. Thank you so much, Paula, for the lovely introduction. Very welcome to Plastic-Free Picnics. I absolutely love a picnic. I think it's a great thing to do, especially during the summer. So even if it's rainy and miserable, you can go hide somewhere or sit in your car. It's actually quite fun eating in your car, I think. We kind of have to get used to it if you are in Ireland during the summer. So perfect opportunity this year to do a class on plastic-free picnics, because we've been encouraged to have a very outdoor summer this year because our options are a bit more limited when it comes to social activities. And I think we've all noticed in the last few months, when the weather has been great, that there has been a litter problem, unfortunately. And a mixture of reasons. Again, our options have been limited, there perhaps haven't been sufficient bins, whatever the case may be. So perfect opportunity, and also to clear up some myths around what being plastic free is. And I will also address things like compostable materials and biodegradable materials, and also recycling, because those are all really, really important things to know. So the way it's going to work is I've given you a recipe booklet with 15 different recipes. You obviously don't have to produce all of them for your picnic. You can pick a few of them. I'll give you some of my suggestions of how it's structured. So we're going to start off with dessert, because it needs to go into the oven. So we're doing dark chocolate and raspberry brownies. This chocolate is lovely, obviously, and delicious, the perfect sweet treat. But A, in summer, if you get a chocolate bar, it's going to melt everywhere. And B, it has a plastic wrapper. So once I get these into the oven, I'm going to talk a little bit more about what the biggest causes of ocean plastic waste are, because that's really what we want to address. And then I've got a huge picnic basket full of goodies that we can play with. I'm actually just going to see if I can spotlight myself first. There we go. So I can just make sure that I'm on screen and in camera so you can see everything. I'm going to lower myself a little bit so you can see what's going on. So you'll have your recipe in front of you, and my students who do my classes get a lot of chocolate recipes. So what I've done first is I've put a glass bowl on top of a pan of simmering water, and I've melted the 125 grams of butter and the 200 grams of dark chocolate, good quality fair trade dark chocolate. And once that was melted, I added the brown sugar and just stirred that in. Then I've left that to cool for 10 minutes. Very important that you do that, because we want to add some eggs to this. And while we want it to be nice and melty and gooey, we don't want the eggs to curdle once they go through there. And then after that, we'll add the raspberries and the flour. So it's a very, very simple recipe. After I've fiddled with many chocolate brownie recipe, I finally settled on this one because it gives a lovely, delicious, proper fudgy texture. It's a very reliable recipe, very well tested. And from a zero waste point of view, you can use different types of chocolate. You can mix up some different types if you've got some, say, left over at Easter time, and you can also use up any bits and bobs that you have as far as fruit and nuts go. So I would add cherries to this, raspberries to it, strawberries even, nuts, pecan nuts, walnuts, toasted hazelnuts. You can add some coffee, some orange zest. It really is very versatile in that sense. Now, this needs to bake in a square dish, 20 centimeters by 20 centimeters. You can use any sort of square dish you have, maybe a non-stick cake tin. I like the glass because we're going to cut the brownies in the tin while they're still warm. So I prefer a glass dish rather than a non-stick so that I don't damage it. So I have just quickly whisked in the eggs. They haven't curdled on me. These are frozen raspberries. You can either freeze your own. I know if Sophie's live with us, I know that she's growing raspberries in her garden. They work better from frozen because they keep their shape. Now, if you don't have your own supply of raspberries and you want to buy them immediately frozen, Lidl does very good frozen raspberries. And there are a number of Irish producers that actually have frozen berries that you'll find in the freezer section of most supermarkets. Boylan's would be one of them. Not sure if Clark's is doing it, but they're a very famous Irish berry producer. Wonderful berries. And obviously all these lovely berries are in season at the moment, so you can take advantage of them. So once the flour gets stirred in, it's going to go very thick. And that's normal, that's what happens. So you just need to stir it until you can't see any lumps of flour left. So it's quite quick. If you follow the instructions of letting the chocolate mixture cool down and you don't overbake these, you're going to have the most fabulous, delicious, gooey brownies, which you have complete control over the ingredients. So there's no weird things like palm oil in them. There's no plastic wrappers, and you can control the chocolate that goes in there. And as I said, I would always buy fair trade chocolate, which you can get from places like the Dublin Food Co-op, of which I'm a member, or Lidl's actually very good at supporting fair trade chocolate. And you're looking at about 70% cocoa. But as I say, you can mix and match a bit of chocolate if you have odds and ends, and roughly come to that. Okay, so just even it out with the back of your spatula or back of a spoon. And you'll see this smells amazing. This is going to go in for exactly 20 minutes. So, I'll get this out of the way. The most important thing when the actual baking of the brownies is not to overbake them, because the more you bake them, the more it's going to become a cake. And I mean, look, it's not the end of the world, but that is also not a brownie texture that we know and love. So we want to try and avoid that if possible. I can see some questions popping up in the chat, so if you just want to put them in the Q&A box, Paula will make sure that I see them. So I'm going to get rid of this tray, and then we're going to talk about plastic-free July. Okay, so plastic-free July, I mean, just hearing that term, we know it's a really good initiative because plastic, especially ocean plastic, is an enormous problem, and it literally is choking our ocean life and killing so much wildlife and really ruining a whole ecosystem. And I'm sure a lot of you are aware that these microplastics that break down end up going, into animals' digestive systems, forming part of their actual bodies, and we also ingest them throughout our diet and fluid intake. So on average, we're consuming about a credit card worth of plastic every month. And you might think, oh, that just passes through me, it's fine, but it actually has quite severe health problems that we're only beginning to understand. So it's bad for the environment, planet, and it's bad for people. And anybody that knows a little bit about me knows that that is what my work in DCU is based on, is the SDGs, and that's human health and well-being and responsible consumption. So this all makes sense. So the top offenders in ocean plastic, percentage-wise, ratio-wise, will be plastic bags, which obviously we've been tackling for many years, but there's a lot more still to do. And then straws, which we know about, and everything around food packaging. So plastic knives and forks, cutlery would be another offender, and all the takeaway containers and plastic type plates and containers, say for like sandwiches and takeaway salads, all that sort of stuff would really be the top offenders. And the fourth one in the top offenders are plastic wrappers around food. So I'm sure you understand that this makes perfect sense why we would do plastic-free picnics, because those are really all the kind of things that you could possibly use in a picnic. You might think, oh, well, I'm going to change to, say, paper plates or compostable plates or biodegradable. Problem with those are that if you use a paper plate, it's not recyclable because it's dirty, it's got food on it. So that will then go to general waste, which goes to landfill or incineration. Compostable cutlery and compostable plates, that only works if you are physically composting it in your own compost bin at home. If it goes into general waste, there's no way for your waste management company to know that that is a compostable product. So again, that goes into general waste. So just be very clear that that could either be a case of greenwashing or that your intention is great, but the end result doesn't actually work. So here are some ideas, and I did put most of them in your booklet. So with each recipe, there is a susty tip, and there is also at the end of the recipe booklet, just some extra little tips. So this, as you can see, is a proper basket. Now I got another basket, I think it was a farmer's market in Gorey. There's a whole basket weaving community in Wexford, and you can do lovely courses. There's a whole community, people with special needs who actually make these fantastic baskets and sell them. So if you have the opportunity, do a bit of research and track one down. So liquids first, try and avoid buying soft drinks. But if you want to buy soft drinks and buy them in glass bottles, definitely not plastic bottles. I'm a big fan of a thermos. Now we all think this is just for teas and coffees, but a thermos will either keep cold drinks cold or hot drinks hot. So a thermos, fantastic. And again, this is not single use. So we're doing our best to avoid single-use plastic. If you have some plastic vessels and containers, just carry on using them or repurpose them maybe for kids' crayons or crafting or something. Don't throw them out unless you can recycle them responsibly. The other thing we love is glass. So I would use these in a smaller version of these to build salads. So that's more for work, but they're great. These are lovely. So this is plastic, and then it's got, this is glass, and then it's got this great lid that has a little vessel in it, a little valve in it. So when you want to heat something up at home, that's brilliant, but also perfect for your picnic. And then let's talk about some materials that perhaps look like plastic but aren't. And one of them is bamboo. Bamboo is a very sustainable material and is used a lot in homewares. I mean, do you believe that that's bamboo? So it looks like plastic, but it's got a slightly duller sound when you tap it. It looks a little bit duller. It's a little bit of a texture to it, and it is more fragile. I would wash these by hand. I wouldn't put them in the dishwasher, even though they are dishwasher safe, because they tend to crack. So again, they're not plastic. They're made from bamboo, and so we have to understand that they will be a little bit more fragile. No takeaway cutlery. definitely not plastic. I don't even like the wooden ones. I think the sensation is horrible. So this set is actually made from wheat. So this is actually the byproduct of wheat from making various cereals and breads and flours. And this has been made into a lovely little set that can travel with you. Perfect for picnics. Wash them and reuse them. And then when school term comes again, you can use these guys. We all know about straws. So I've got loads of these. This is just a single stainless steel one with the little brush to wash it. Please wash it. And then one of my favorite things, silicone is a really good material. It's very long wearing. It's not plastic. It's safer to have food in. So these are silicone pouches. Now this one's great because when you fill it, it actually stands up. It's got a little base to it. Don't buy the ones that are super flat. This has got a very good ziplock on it. So these are fantastic if you're going to transport something that's liquidy. So I'm going to put the Mojito Fruit in here. Also excellent for freezing. I use quite a lot of silicone bakeware as well, because it's naturally fairly non-stick and it goes up to 240 degrees without melting. Beeswax wraps, you know these. I just got a new set. Pretty easy to make yourself. All sorts of cooler bags. My favorite is the Marks and Sparks shopping bags that are cooler bags. They are a fantastic option. So, and very reasonably priced, pretty indestructible. This little one is for sandwiches, but I actually put sushi in here. Nice and hygienic, easy to clean, and again, this is reusable, reusable, reusable. Okay. Last example of bamboo. So this has actually got metal inside, which is great, and the outside is made from bamboo and I think a sugarcane type pseudo-plastic, which is brilliant. But as I said, again, be careful with bamboo. I have found that it does crack. So if you can get stainless steel lunch boxes and tiffin tins, they are brilliant. So these are just some ideas of how you can package up your fabulous picnic and not have any plastic. My last suggestion, this is actually a cosmetics bag that I've repurposed. And inside, if you put a bunch of damp face cloths, and this then replaces baby wipes and paper serviettes to sort of wipe yourselves clean. Because obviously eating picnic, you are eating with your hands, etc., etc. And you'll be able to get sets like this in bamboo if you want plates and things, no problem. I was laughing with Paula earlier on. I'm a big fan of TK Maxx. I found some fantastic bamboo items in there. And also, there's a lot of zero waste shops that have sprung up in Dublin that have got great selections. And a lot of them are online if you don't live in Dublin. And things like the silicone bags, the straws, all of that sort of stuff, you will be able to get with a bit of mindfulness. But just to iterate, we don't want you to, someone said lovely selection recipes. Thank you, I like the recipes for sure. There's loads more. Just to reiterate that I don't want you to Marie Kondo all your plastic. As an example, I was laughing about this with Paula. This is a Tupperware set that's literally 20 years old. But again, it was never meant to be a single-use plastic. It's durable, it's good quality. I wouldn't heat food up in Tupperware ever, but this is fine. It's great. Carry on using it. Nothing wrong with it. Repurpose, upcycle, do what you need to do. So I can actually take a couple of questions, Paula, if you want me to. As the brownies are about to come out, but if you want to shout them out to me, there's no problem. I can multitask.
There's just two questions here at the moment, Rozanne. What do you mean by greenwashing?
I just saw Pam. Yes, the French baguette is amazing. I've got a recipe for that. Greenwashing is it's similar to the health industry health halo. It's when a product or practice is being marketed as being environmentally friendly, but it's not the full story. So that would be the case with compostable packaging, is that in itself, there's nothing wrong with the packaging, but it's not the full story. As in, that is not compostable unless it's in your own compost bin at home, or if you as a business have an arrangement with your waste provider who knows that that's compostable and will compost it. So
that's what greenwashing is. That was one of the questions, yes. And just the other question I had was, Are these items expensive in comparison to what we're used to using?
What's happened was, and a lot of these things have been available for a number of years already. So they start off as quite expensive, but they certainly come down in price. I know from buying them initially, but there's alternatives. Like say, for instance, the cutlery made from the wheat waste. You can go to the children's section in any, what used to be Mother Care, but the equivalent of Mother Care, and you can actually get sets of children's cutlery. I have a lovely set, it's stainless steel, and it comes in a little tin. It looks like a pencil box. I actually gave mine away, it was adorable. So if you just think outside the box, you can find alternatives that are reusable. They don't have they don't have to be fancy. I call it eco-consumerism, you know, that we're just replacing one item for something else. You don't have to rush out and buy a whole lot of new things. I'm just showing you alternatives. So for instance, I've got colleagues and friends that I work with that are now using the last of their plastic zippy bags until they actually perish, and then they won't buy any more, if that makes sense.
Yes.
You gradually phase it out. But there's things like cling film is a disaster. There's nothing you can do with that. But there is biodegradable cling film available now, but it's not really good. It's not, not sticky. It's not great. So that dish that my brownies are baking in comes with this rubber lid. I would rather buy that than use cling film. Pyrex make the best glassware out. I've got Pyrex dishes with rubber lids that are 20 years old. So again, it's different ways of looking at sustainability. There's not just one way that something will be more sustainable. I found very unusual solutions to the problem, shall we say. I'm going to grab those brownies out. They're a few more minutes to go, but we don't want them overdone. You see, if you ever want to reheat a brownie at home, you need to give yourself that few minutes wiggle room to compensate for the reheating, if that makes sense. But these, you're just going to cut them up into squares when they come out the oven, and then when they're completely cool, we'll be able to lift them out. No problem.
And somebody is saying, somebody there, lovely selection of recipes, but pan bagnet is my go-to. Wrap in a tea towel and ready to go.
That's amazing. That's a famous French baguette, and it's a very, very special tuna filling with lots of delicious things in it.
Yes.
I actually have the recipe for that with a photo. I can pop that on.
Oh yeah, cool. And then somebody else is saying that that's really interesting about compostable coffee cups, etc. And then another lady uses her grandmother's Pyrex bowls.
Well, that glass dish with flowers on it, that's original Pyrex, and they've actually become collector's items. So I know people that are going through, you know, St. Vincent de Paul's and secondhand shops, and they're buying up the Pyrex and the glass jars with the cork lids. Do you remember those? And there's IKEA selling those new now, but they originally came from, I think, the 1970s, and they're really collectible. And so this is almost done. It's solid, it's not gooey. So I could do with a few more minutes, but I'm going to take it out the oven. It smells incredible. Kind of have the heat a little bit.
Another comment there, the car boot sales are great.
They are brilliant. And again, that's a whole part of sustainability, is reusing and recycling and just keeping things in the loop rather than just chucking them out. Somebody else could absolutely love it and get great use out of it. Actually, we should organize a few car boot sales. Great things come out of that. So I am just going to move that to the side, but it smells incredible. Melted chocolate with raspberries. Raspberries and chocolate are a match made in heaven. They are incredible. Really, really, really amazing. So the next thing to go into the oven, while the oven's on, is a lot of the work we do in DCU. We work on making kitchens more sustainable, sort of industrial kitchens, working kitchens. But a lot of that information I take and translate to the domestic house. And electricity usage, energy usage, water usage, all of that forms part of responsible consumption. So while your oven's on, ideally you'd have a couple of things going on in there, but it's still on, so I'm going to get the sticky chicken in. So I have a lot of vegetarian followers and vegan followers. So when it comes to the chicken, the reason I chose a specific recipe, not just because it's delicious and chicken drumsticks, cold chicken drumsticks on a picnic are fantastic, is that if you are going to buy chicken, from a carbon footprint point of view, it is the most sustainable meat, or has potential to be. We all know that chicken farming varies dramatically, and we do need to get back to buying the whole chicken or chicken pieces as a second option, because the skinless, boneless chicken breasts are not great from a sustainability point of view. I think you know, if you think about it, you'll understand why. You know, it's not normal to have such a huge, enormous demand just for one part of the bird, and then what happens to the rest of the bird, and it ends up in the food chain in strange and unusual ways, and processed foods that are not good for us. And certainly in Ireland, there's a lot of fantastic free-range chicken farmers, again, actually in Wexford, that you can get your whole chicken from, and you can break it down yourself. Your butcher can do it for you. This recipe you can do on the barbecue, or you can do it in the oven. So the marinade recipe is there for you. So I've marinated the chicken for a couple of hours. I've actually got thighs, drumsticks, and wings. So I'm going to pop in the thighs first because they're a little bit bigger. And I'll give it a few minutes and I'll pop in the drumsticks and the wings, but it's really good quality chicken, so it's nice and juicy. And just a bit of a food safety thing. So when it comes to food safety, there's two things I want you to remember, is that proteins are more delicate and more fragile and more susceptible to bacterial growth. And the second thing is that things must either be kept chilled or completely chilled, or they must be hot. That in between lukewarm temperature is not great. So that's why when you cook your chicken, cool it down within 90 minutes and then pop it into the fridge, make sure it's really cold, and then into your cooler bag with some ice packs in it to keep it chilled. And I wouldn't let it sit around all day. Try and eat that within a couple of hours, because obviously you can't control the environment within that cooler bag completely, but that would give you a decent amount of coverage and of safety. So here's a general tip around marinades and basting. I see this with barbecue so much and it freaks me out. So if you've marinated your meat, all right, then you lift it out and I've not popped into the oven, or you've put it onto the barbecue, and then I see people carry on basting with that same raw marinade that the raw chicken is sat in. Please don't do that. I mean, look, it's a miracle we haven't all succumbed to food poisoning. What you want to do with that marinade to turn it into a basting sauce is you pour it off, you can see here, and then you bring it up to the boil and you boil it really well. Then you reduce it down to simmer. Now you need to stir it because it's sticky, you don't want to burn, and it should sit on a very low simmer for a good 15 minutes. And that means that it's properly cooked, the heat has killed any bacteria, and it's gone nice and sticky and sweet. So when the chicken is almost cooked, whether it's in the barbecue or it's in the oven, then you baste your chicken with this, okay? Because it's cooked, it's safe, it's hygienic. Does that make sense? I'm sure it makes sense when I've explained it to you like that. And you can use something like a silicone basting brush, and there's again that is very easy to clean, it's very hygienic, and everyone will be safe. So this has done its 15 minutes, it's cooled down, and it's ready to baste the chicken. So I'll pop in the little wings. I had a whole selection of just different chicken pieces, hence why I have all of those. So I'm just going to put a little timer on that so that I know when to baste it. And then you put a thick, it's called lacquer, you put a thick layer of the basting sauce on, and you just pop it back in the oven for about 10 minutes. Now, in your recipe, you'll see I suggest putting it on a tray, like a cooling rack, sort of, or roasting rack on top of a tin. Now, the reason for that is that the air can circulate and it gets super, super crispy. Not absolutely necessary to do that, because I've got them in glass dishes. What will end up happening is that the sauce under the chicken will go nice and crusty and sticky and delicious and caramelized. So, you know, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I don't find it makes a huge difference. I would recommend greasing your dish really well, because it's going to make it easier to clean. It does go really, really sticky at the end of the day. So do we have any more questions?
No, I think everybody's just fascinated to see all of the recipes. There are very few, because the only thing is there was one question that did come up. You said good quality chickens. Now, I know that's sort of self-explanatory, but how do you know that, you know, where do you get the good quality chicken?
Very good question. Okay, so I actually did this for when I was on the Pat Kenny show on every Friday. I did a blind test with the battery chicken, free-range chicken and organic chicken. And in the taste test, now bear in mind this is a very small sample, in the taste test, the free-range chicken actually won hands down. So the difference is organic chickens, and the legislation around organic chickens is incredibly strict in Ireland. It is almost impossible, I think, to be an organic chicken farmer in many ways. It's really, really difficult, but you'll know that that chicken from sort of every single minute is 100% organic. Organic chickens tend to live a little bit longer than a free-range chicken. It's just part of the legislation, but not always. I find sometimes with organic chicken is because they live a very fit outdoor life, and they can be very lean, and the muscles they're very fit, basically. And I sometimes find an organic chicken can be very lean and not a huge amount on it, but that completely depends on the producer. So your other alternative is a good free-range producer. There are fantastic free-range producers in Ireland, but it's quite a grey area. The legislation isn't as strict as it is with organic. So there's, say, Regan's in Wexford does amazing organic chickens, and I would always ask your local butcher, your good local butcher, because they tend to stock a good free-range chicken and sometimes a good organic chicken if that's what you really want. But it'll be the whole chicken, and they can break it down for you if you don't know how to break down a chicken yourself. So it's one of those things, it's a little bit of a grey area, but I would always, one of the rules in DCU, because we've got a food policy when it comes to procurement, is I make sure 100% of animal protein is from Ireland, and legitimately from Ireland, because there is some legislation that chicken can, say, be reared in another country, and then just because it's broken down and packaged in Ireland, it's labelled as Irish, and it's not really. So for meat, I would look at smaller producers, unless there's proper traceability and you can see which farm, where it came from, so that you know 100% where it's come from and not from Thailand. There we go. Brilliant.
Excellent.
So Maria's just said what I reiterated, that the organic chickens can be a bit tougher, and that's literally because they're a little bit older and they're fitter, and that's what it is. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. But an organic chicken, like that chicken you mentioned, West Cork, is more similar to what chickens would have been, say, in the 1970s and 80s. We've actually bred them to be completely different. So there's now, I think it's 23% more body fat in chickens, or more. It's actually more than that than there was in 1974. So there's a lot has happened in chicken farming, and it is about education. It's about reading up. It's about you know, following the news, following food writers that you know and you trust. Twitter is great. If any of you are on Twitter, Twitter's great for getting a lot of foodie news, because a lot of the foodies tend to be have Twitter accounts, and you can always ask questions. There's a great butcher in Rennes called the Village Butcher. They stock very good quality meat, and even if you don't buy your meat from them, I'm sure you could ask them some questions as well.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But it's very important to get it right. Chicken and pork. Pork is the other meat, unfortunately, that has the potential to be a very sustainable food source, but it gets treated with all sorts of hideous things. But fortunately in Ireland, we've got a very strong tradition of excellent pork butchers, like really, really high quality, probably one of the best countries in Europe for that. So we are fortunate in that regard. So my chicken is doing its thing in the oven. Oh, sorry, just a note on the chicken is that sticky marinade is delicious. You can also coat aubergine chunks, big portobello mushrooms, sweet potato chunks, and roast them in the same way. So you can use the same marinade recipe, but then make it vegetarian, if that makes sense. It's a really good marinating basting sauce in that sense, and you've got a vegan option. I try and make the recipes versatile, not always possible, but when I can, I do. So I'm just going to wash my hands quickly, and then we'll move on to the next recipe. So as we mentioned earlier on, one of the attendees were talking about the French pain beignet, which is fabulous and delicious and very, very famous. I do like having something picnicky, sandwichy on a picnic. It just makes sense. Now, of course, if you've got a favorite ham and cheese sandwich, by all means, go ahead and do that. I was in two minds as to whether to make an Italian pressed sandwich, which is absolutely delicious. It's easy for you to go and Google that if you want to try that. And then I thought, no, let me do a Reuben. So a Reuben is a very famous sandwich. It's normally toasted. One of my favorite versions of it is actually on a bagel, on a rye bagel, is delicious. But sometimes it can be a little bit doughy. Not everyone's a huge fan of bagels. But if you're doing brunch at home or something, this on a bagel is amazing. So the common components, shall I say, in a Reuben is the dressing is really important. This is what we call Russian dressing. It's absolutely delicious. It's like our beloved Murray Rose in Ireland. So there's mayonnaise in it, and a little bit of ketchup, and then some of the defining flavors in it. It's got horseradish sauce. So this is the horseradish cream. The sauce can be a bit hotter. So it's the bog standard one you buy in the supermarket, normally a little square jar. I think Coleman's make it. There are some fancier Irish versions of it. A little pinch of paprika, a little dash of Worcestershire sauce. You can put a little dash of hot sauce in there if you want to. And a very, very finely chopped shallot, and a very, very finely chopped cornichon, which is a tiny little gherkin. But if you have a regular gherkin, that's what you're going to use. So that's the dressing we're going to use on it. Then it also gets a good pile of sauerkraut. You can, of course, make your own sauerkraut. I bought this because I've run out. It takes about a week to make sauerkraut yourself. Delicious. So sauerkraut is obviously German. It's very, very finely chopped cabbage that's fermented. So it's got a sour taste to it. Absolutely delicious. It tastes vinegary. It doesn't taste fermented, if I can put it like that. It's very accessible if you're trying to get into fermented foods, which are very good for your gut. Then the cold meat we use, I use pastrami because I like sort of the New York Reuben, which pastrami is cured topside beef. It's very similar to the Cork spiced beef. So if you can get spiced beef, this would be incredible on it. So pastrami, sliced beef, or just leftover roast beef. If you don't, if you're vegetarian, roasted red peppers are amazing on this. You can also substitute caramelized onions for the sauerkraut. Delicious. Swiss cheese is traditionally the cheese that's used. I've got slices of Gouda, but if you go to the supermarket, there's lots of sliced cheese. It's easier to buy it sliced. Sometimes it can be tricky to slice it that thinly yourself. So something like a Jarlsberg or an Emmental, Monterey Jack, which is a little slightly spicier cheeses, anything like that that's going to melt, you're going to put in it. Okay, so I'm using these rolls. These are not quite Hawaiian rolls. They're these tiny little rolls. Now they should stay stuck together. I'll show you now. I've now broken them apart. Okay, so you can get white ones, you can get brown ones. These are the seeded ones. So sometimes your smaller bakeries will have them. Marks and Sparks sells these. In your recipe, you'll see I recommend caraway seeds. and that's to sprinkle on the top. But these are already seeded, so I'm not worried about that. Just check this question. There we go. Guys, if you want to check the chat, there's a great recommendation for organic chicken. There we go. That's how you find out. It's from other people trying the chicken and being happy with it. That is the best way with the chicken. So if you can get the proper Hawaiian rolls, where it's almost like a square and then it's broken up into little buns, little rolls, it's much easier to do this because they stay together. Because you're literally going to cover the whole layer, bottom layer, with all your goodies. And then if you want to, you can heat it up in the oven. Not essential to do that, only if you want to. And entirely up to you whether you want to butter the rolls or not. Doesn't bother me. So let me show you how to do this. So pretend these are all stuck together, which they're not anymore. I've broken them apart. Very carefully, I'm going to have to do these in twos now. Cut it along the horizontal, okay, as if you're going to make a regular bun, all right? But again, as I said, it's much easier if they're all stuck together. So these are little sliders, which are minis, really. If you like baking bread, they're actually pretty easy to make. It's like a dinner roll recipe. A tear and share bread, if you make a tear and share loaf and cut it on the horizontal, it will be the same thing, okay? I'm actually going to bake these. So I'm going to pop them in the oven. Now, it doesn't matter if you actually bake them and then they go cold, they're equally delicious. There's no problem. I have done that on a few occasions. My dish isn't quite big enough. Oh, actually, I've got two bottoms here, do I? Yes. To make sure I've all got the seeded tops. All right, so I would allocate at least 2 sliders per person. You don't want anyone to miss out. So I've got 4 here, so that's enough for 2. Move it out the way. And then if you want to butter them, go ahead and butter them, no problem. And just on the bottom layer, put a little bit of the Russian dressing, which is super delicious. You know what, it's just something different for a change, you know. Now, I'm a big fan of pickles, so you will notice this is not in the recipe. I've just added this. I use my kitchen scissors a lot, by the way. So I'm putting a dill pickle onto each Reuben slider as well. So I didn't put the pickle inside the Russian dressing because I wanted extra pickle. Now again, you can do proper fermented pickles that are not just pickled, they're actually fermented. And again, that is fantastic for gut health. And then we've got our sauerkraut. I've already been digging into this. Now, if the sauerkraut is very juicy, you can drain some of the liquid. But this one is quite dry. I find if I make it myself, it produces a lot of water comes out of the cabbage itself. So, okay. And don't assume people won't like the sauerkraut. It really is so tasty. It's super, super savory. It's not it's not a really strong taste, if I can put it like that. I'm just going to grab the pastrami and the cheese. Okay. So pastrami, as I said, it's a traditional cold meat, and it's quite heavily spiced, gorgeous, delicious. And spiced beef from Cork is very, very similar. Such a nice treat. When it comes to charcuterie, I prefer buying things that are traditionally made because they don't tend to have all the nitrates and nasties added to them, because there's laws and there's rules around making them. So the next step is you would close them, and if your bun didn't have any seeds in it, you brush with some melted butter and sprinkle on some caraway seeds, and that would give you that very traditional sort of flavour, that's slightly European flavour with the caraway seeds. So my oven obviously is occupied, so I'm going to put these aside and pop them into the oven a little bit later. So once those are ready to rock and done, what I would do is I would wrap them in paper, so proper, baking paper, baking parchment, greaseproof paper. I've got a box here, and a lot of these now are either made from recycled paper, or you can recycle it, or even better, compost it. I'd wrap it in some paper, and if you want to keep it warm, either put it in a separate cooler bag, because the cooler bag will keep it warm, it's thermal, or wrap a tea towel around it. As that lady said, clean tea towels wrapped around food. We've been doing it for centuries. It's really clean, it's really nice, and it's so much better, obviously, than using plastic. So does anyone have any questions about the Reuben sliders? Does that combination make sense to you? Does the dressing make sense to you?
There's one comment there, Rozanne. Leftover mashed potato or potato water makes a sweetly soft dinner roll, if you want.
Amazing. That's a great idea. That's a really great idea. I got the suggestion recently, and I've yet to try it, to add the cooking water from your potatoes to your washing up water. Because apparently the starch helps to clean the dishes. I don't know. That's a tip I have to try. But no, great tip on the dinner rolls. And I think a lot of people made sourdough last year in lockdown 1. So dinner rolls might be the next one. They're not that difficult to make. They're actually quite fun to make. All right. I'm just going to grab some nuts. I'm going to take the chicken out, and I'm going to baste it really, really well in that delicious sticky basting sauce. It really is such a good basting sauce. I encourage you to try it. Okay. Brilliant. So that is the basting sauce. So you can use it a couple of times. The more often you brush the basting sauce on the chicken or the vegetables, is you're building up layers of stickiness, lacquer, as they call it. So the sticky layer will become thicker and thicker, which is obviously delicious. I'm just turning them over, and then I'm going to pour over the basting sauce. And as I said, this now is all nice and hygienic and clean, and no raw chicken juices left in it. Happy days. Chicken skewers would also be nice. If you had the breasts from your whole chicken, you can make some skewers. It's delicious. In your recipe booklet, you'll notice that I gave you, I think, 4 different options on nibbles and sticks. Delicious, also good for parties, and you can get the little wooden sticks everywhere, but you have to compost those yourself. Looking really good. I'm going to check my alarm and just adjust accordingly. Okay, we're only a few minutes off, so let me just I'm going to check them after 15 minutes and see how we get on. So the times I gave you for all the recipes are for a standard fan oven. So most ovens nowadays are fan ovens. So that's literally have a little picture of the fan, like the top and bottom element. If it is a top and bottom element, you can just adjust the temperature by about 10% and it'll come out as the same thing. But the main thing with chicken is that it goes into a good hot oven because that's going to caramelize the sweet stickiness. That's the idea of it. Okay, I'm just checking on. Okay, so I've got a question about aluminium foil. So I've pondered this a lot. So what I would do with aluminium foil is, you can actually recycle it quite often, is I would wrap a layer of paper around it first, so the recyclable or compostable baking paper, and then the foil. That is actually started years ago in Christmas class in my cookery school already, because we just kind of weren't entirely comfortable with aluminium coming into direct contact with the food. I do know that aluminium pots are a big no-no, that they actually leach, leach the metal into your food. So I think for that reason, I would put a layer of the paper between the foil and aluminium. Benefits of the aluminium is obviously it insulates the food, so either will help it keep it cold or it will keep it hot. When it comes to baking trays and things like that and lining them, I've got silicone sheets. So the smaller ones you can get from places like Deals. My students know all about my silicone sheets and Deals. They get waved at them every 5 minutes. Or you can get big catering ones that are thicker and you can cut them to size. So if you're in Dublin or Ireland, there's a company in Pearse Street called Sweeney O'Rourke. It's just the two surnames. Also there's Nisbets in Cork, and they have the big silicone sheets. If you are in the States, as I know a couple of students are, you should have no problems getting silicone sheets. Just go to the caterer suppliers. So again, silicone, reusable, it's safe in contact with food, and it's pretty indestructible. It will carry on going. So that is the question. I'm just checking that I've caught up with everyone. There we go. Excellent. So the chicken is busy doing its thing in the oven. Let me just wash my hands quickly. And so we can move on to the Mojito Fruit, all right? So obviously on a hot summer's day, even if the sun isn't really bright, in summer it's just generally warmer and more dehydrating, or even if it's humid, it's still dehydrating. So you need lots of refreshments. So obviously we have our flasks, several flasks full of something lovely to drink. I'm a big fan of making homemade cordials, and also something I was considering doing it as a class, just a quick little class on Instagram or something, is making your own home fermented sodas. Because you make something called a ginger bug, and you use that then to ferment fruit juices and other things, and you get a fizzy drink. So it's not the same as kombucha. It's actually easier to do if you get into the habit of it. So you could do something like that, or you could make a nice homemade cordial. You could have elderflower done. I know a lot of people make elderflower cordial, which I love and adore. And over and above that, fresh fruit is fantastic at a picnic or garden party, or any sort of social gathering, literally just sitting in your garden at home. So the recipe is written for watermelon. It also works for pineapple. I'm going to use pineapple today just to show you how fantastic it is. And it will even work for things like mango. So the Mojito watermelon, where it comes from, I'm sure you all know, Mojito is a classic cocktail. I actually think it's from Cuba. It's made with rum, a good quality rum, and it's then muddled with a sugar syrup, which we call a simple syrup, mint, and lime. It is absolutely delicious. It's one of my favorite summery drinks in the world. It's fantastic. I top mine up with quite a lot of sparkling water so that it's a long drink and there's lots going on. But the main components are the mint and the lime, which are so delicious and so fresh and perfectly summery. So you can just cut up watermelon wedges and have them as is, or what we're going to do is we're going to make this delicious syrup and pour it over the fruit, and then I suggest freezing it, because then it becomes almost like an ice pop. So for attendees from other countries and islands, there is an argument over whether we call it an ice pop or an ice lolly or popsicle. I just tend to call it an ice pop, which I think is more the old-fashioned name for it, but that's what I call them anyway. You can use rum in this, like the actual mojito. It's just a tiny amount, and then you just sort of have this boozy, frozen, slushy, delicious treat, or you just add a bit more water. I've made mine without rum, not a big train smash, still delicious. You have to think a little bit ahead of time when you're doing this, because you have to make up the sugar syrup. So that's literally just this pot, and it's 1 cup of water, 3/4 cup of sugar. There's not equal parts of sugar and water, because that would be a simple syrup, and that starts going hard and starts setting. We want to make sure that this still stays quite liquidy. Okay, so I'm just giving you a bit of food science there, and I put a big bunch of mint in there to flavour with the minty flavour. It's also going to get the juice of 2 limes. But before I add the lime juice, I want to zest the limes, because the limes are going to be the garnish. They're a really important part of the recipe, and they bring out the flavour of the whole thing, to be honest. Okay, so I'm going to grab my microplane. Where's my microplane? Hello, Mr. Microplane. I have many, many microplanes. Check my bag of tricks. Oh, hang tight. It's moved. I'm not a minimalist when it comes to kitchen gadgets. Even though I've given away a lot, I still have a lot. Here's a microplane, it's just missing the rubber handle from the journey. And this pencil, one of my favorite kitchen tools. So in a little bowl, you just want to zest the zest off with your very fine grater. Microplane is the original brand, and to be quite honest, I thought it works the best. And then just zest away. Happy days. Smells glorious. The more you get into making your own food, the less packaging you're going to end up incurring. Even down to making your own salad dressings. Because the individual components of your salad dressings, you know, are normally in glass bottles. Whereas when you buy salad dressings, they're often in plastic bottles, and over and beyond that, they also contain things that you probably don't really want to eat. Okay. So this recipe works best with watermelon and with pineapple. Amazing with pineapple. So I'm going to do it with pineapple today. Nice tropical fruit, also nice and juicy. And it's a bit like watermelon in the sense that it's kind of holy. So it absorbs the zest. So that's going to be for the garnish later. So hang tight with that. And just roll your lime. It will help the juice to come out. And this is the syrup that we're going to pour over either your watermelon or your pineapple. This will be one of the nicest things you'll make this summer. You're going to come back to this again and again and again, I promise you. So the spent mint, you can pop it in the compost bin. Really get that lime out of there. And I'm going to show you how to transport this as well. That's going to be sort of the less messy and the most sustainable. Okay, so let me just get my pineapple that I've chopped up, or your watermelon wedges. I think kids especially love watermelon wedges. So the longer pieces are just easier to hold, and then just pour over. Now keep your fruit in a single layer, pour over your syrup. So this has been boiled for about 5 minutes, and then it's been cooled down completely, because hot syrup on the fruit will literally start cooking it. It's not what we want. Okay. And make sure that everything is covered in the syrup, and I'm going to pop this without it covering into the freezer. So it will take a couple of hours to, it depends on how big your pieces are. You don't want to cut things too thin so that they start falling apart and they're difficult to pick up, they break up. But you also don't want to cut them too chunky because then they don't freeze very well. So the syrup could have had a 1/4 cup of rum in it if you wanted to. I left it out. I just added more water, and this is going to go into the fridge. It will take approximately 2 up to 4 hours to freeze. So when you go on your picnic, it doesn't matter if it defrosts a little bit. It will still be delicious. And I would recommend you can either, if you have your ancient Tupperware that you already own, or you put it into silicone baggie that seals very well. You just want something to seal in case there's still some syrup that hasn't absorbed. So let me pop this into the freezer. Okay, so when you're ready to serve that, you just sprinkle over the lime zest and also a little bit of coarse sea salt. And you'll be amazed at how the sea salt actually brings out the flavor of the fruit. It is so delicious, super, super delicious. Paul, do you want to check if there are any questions for me? Are we doing okay?
Nothing there at the moment. Everybody is transfixed.
Everyone's here. Well, the recipes are not difficult. So when it comes to putting together your picnic menu, which is something I wanted to cover, I would always choose one thing that's quite substantial. So something like either the sticky chicken or the Reuben sliders. And as I said, you can do the vegetarian version of either, because that is almost the main sort of filling part of your recipe. And then a couple of things that are fresh. So the broccoli slaw, which you're going to do next, is amazing. It's so good. You're going to make that so many times this summer, I promise you. That is amazingly delicious. So either that, or there's a crudité platter with a ranch dip. So I know Ethel's on this class, and she makes my original recipe that's a bit runnier. So I made this one a bit thicker with crudités. Absolutely delicious. And again, that's nice and fresh. The nibbles on sticks, again, are fresh vegetables, fruity. You need that fresh element. It can't all be starch. But when it comes to the carbs and the starch, there's an amazing Asian noodle salad with the most delicious dressing. And it's a real zero waste recipe. You can put any number of vegetables in there. You can also add chicken if you want to. And there is potato salad. Now, I made it with a mustard vinaigrette instead of a mayonnaise dressing, because I just feel there's mayonnaise with a creamy dressing on the slaw, and there's also Russian dressing on the Reuben sliders, but it's entirely up to you. There is a suggestion in the potato salad that you can add a bit of creme fraiche if you want to, and it's amazing because the creme fraiche mixes with this lovely mustard vinaigrette. Spring onions are fantastic in the spring salad. Inside the potato salad, you can also add hard-boiled eggs, pickles, and crispy bacon. So again, up to you what you do with it. And then you do need something sweet, and I tend to add something that's like a bit. So I've included in the booklet my Marmalade Flapjacks, so Marmalade Oaty Flapjacks, which was a happy accident during lockdown 1.0, and they're super simple, It's my alarm for my chicken. They're super simple, good zero waste recipe, and really, really easy to make. And that, I think, is that more kind of wholesome option that's not super sweet and decadent like the brownies. I'm just going to take out the chicken. I'll see if I can give them another lacquer.
I think people are generally commenting that they're starving. That's why there's no questions, because they are really getting hungry.
So that is the chicken. It's looking really good. It smells amazing. So what I'm going to do with it, it's cooked at this point, is I'm going to take the other one out. I'm going to pour the rest of the basting sauce over, and I'm going to switch off the oven. So I don't want to overcook it. Pop the oven off. I think we have a lot of foodies in the class, so they will be able to make these recipes with no problem. I know I have a couple of kids in the class, but they're also very keen cooks, so they'll manage this just fine. So that's the last of the basting sauce. So that will add another sticky, crispy layer. And I'm just going to pop it into the oven with the oven switched off. But that is done. We don't want dry chicken. Not that it will be dry with all this TLC.
Rozanne, there's a question there from Max asking where will we be able to find a link to watch this back, please. So just to let everybody know that this will be going up on, I think, YouTube and on Facebook over the next few days. And anybody who attended this afternoon's workshop will be sent the link as well. Okay.
Yes,
so I hope that answers your question.
I think that's the easiest way to do it.
Yeah.
And obviously, my contact details are also at the end of the document. So if you have any questions, the quickest way to get me is just to follow me on Twitter or Instagram and send me a DM. I respond pretty promptly, and that's the quickest way to get me. All my email address is also on there if you get lost with anything. So the last recipe, I see my battery's a bit low because I've had all this lighting on for such a long time. So what I'll do is I'm going to go to the broccoli slaw, which is my sister-in-law's recipe. It is phenomenal. You have to make this. Have to make this recipe. So this, we think of coleslaw as just cabbage based, but raw broccoli works extremely well. So the original recipe is for 2 heads of broccoli, but I just want to show you how to dice this up. So it's 2 heads of broccoli, then packet of bacon, which I just crisped up. You're going to chop this finely. Yes, I have eaten 2 pieces. That's why there's a gap there. I was bold. Who can resist streaky bacon? So if you prefer back bacon, use back bacon. You can use turkey bacon, or you can use they're called tofu. The tofu bacon, which is actually absolutely fine. And then we're going to add sunflower seeds to it and some raisins. You've got all the recipe. And then the dressing was originally all mayonnaise, but I added some creme fraiche into it because I don't like pure mayonnaise dressings. So one thing I want you to take away from this, play around with your mayonnaise dressings and sub some either sour cream, creme fraiche, for the mayonnaise, and you will have great results. So just before I do this, I just want to go through the recipes we've done so far. So our chocolate brownies are done. They are amazing and smell delicious. The chicken is doing its thing in the oven. It's busy resting. And at a later stage, I'll pop in my Reuben sliders into the oven just to melt the cheese. Our pineapple's in the freezer, you've seen that. So that's just an alternative using watermelon. And I just want to show you how to dice up the broccoli. So if I do suddenly disappear, broccoli with delicious lighter and mayonnaise dressing, bacon, sunflower seeds, and raisins. This is my sister-in-law's recipe. It is famous at this point. It's been in both my cookbooks. So well worth making it.
There's a question there, Rozanne. Is it okay to thin out a creamy dressing with some cold water to lighten it?
100%. You can thin out any dressing with water. That's a really good question. If it's creamy, I sometimes use milk, but water is absolutely fine. And then what you do is just up the acid. So either some vinegar or some lemon juice or something, that also makes it lighter. Really, really good question. Mayonnaise is almost pure oil, so that's why it's so heavy. So from a zero waste point of view, what I want you to do is don't waste that big stalk. This one didn't come with it. Cut it off, peel it, and then either grate it on the coarse grater or put it through your food processor. What I'm going to do is I'm literally just going to chop it up with my knife. This bit of the stalk is very tender, but it's important with this recipe that you get everything really small. Now, obviously, I'm quite quick with a chef's knife. I'm sure many of you are too. But please don't waste any of the broccoli, because we are all about zero waste. So this is really important. But again, it works really, really well on the coarse side of the grater. You can just grate it, just mind your fingers. I actually prefer using my knife to the grater. I think it's a little bit safer in some ways, and get it really, really small, because you must remember your broccoli stems are coarser than the florets. Now, I'm doing this completely raw, but if you struggle with digesting cruciferous vegetables, you can blanch your broccoli very quickly in boiling water and then refresh it in ice water. Okay, so that is most of the stalk. So you're cutting it very small, like it's smaller than a peanut size. And then the florets, what I do is I just go into the floret and I chop it like this. So I'm cutting away from myself, and just use your fingers, and what you want are these tiny little florets, okay? Now it looks a bit fiddly, but you get really quick at it. And in that stem, absolutely no problem. So you can make this ahead of time. So this could become your next favorite salad this summer season, not just for the picnics. And like I said, just carry on going, add your seedless raisins, add your sunflower seeds, your diced cooked bacon, and then your creamy dressing. Play around with that dressing. If you want to make it tartar, make it tartar. If you want to make it more mayonnaise-y, make it more mayonnaise-y. So that's a very famous recipe from my sister-in-law that we've had for so many years, and we've never got bored of it. It's just a really, really good recipe in that sense. Okay, so I think you've seen me doing enough of this. You probably know how to do your broccoli at this point. Now, just to give you another cruciferous vegetable tip, if you were doing cauliflower tabbouleh, you've got two, instead of using bulgur wheat, you've got two options in that. You can then grate the cauliflower, because then you want it really, really small, or stick it through the food processor, or you can buy frozen cauliflower rice. It's an Irish company, Green Isle, that do the frozen foods, and they sell the frozen cauliflower rice. So if you want to introduce more vegetables, cruciferous vegetables into your diet, that's a nice way of doing it, as a nice fresh summery salad, rather than say cauliflower mash, something like that. I just want to decorate my pineapple before I forget, so you can see. So this has been in the freezer for a little bit. Now it'd be a good idea to mix it up, and then just make sure that the syrup goes everywhere, and then you give it a good sprinkle of the lime zest and also salt. Do try the coarse salt. It makes a huge difference. It smells amazing. The lime and mint and tropical fruit really are such a good match. So shall we do last questions, just to make sure I get everyone? Are you okay with the broccoli slaw? I think you can manage that as assembly at that point.
I think there's one more there. Was wondering how the pineapple was doing. Perfect for us for our Caribbean summer.
Lisa's in the Caribbean. She's very lucky. Lisa's already gone plastic free a few years ago, so she can probably give us a few tips. But that's the thing, Caribbean heat and pineapple, magic. So I've done that with watermelon, which was the first one, pineapple, and I've done it with mango. I tried it with papaya, but papaya was a little bit soft. It didn't work as well. So yes, actually you'll like this, Lisa. You can also put chili flakes on the pineapple. So the lime zest, the chili flakes, and the salt. That's a thing I learned in Thailand. It's so good. And just to try it, something different. I'm just checking. I think yeah, I got Barry. Actually, as an interesting point, Barry, on the salad dressings, the creamy dressing you can thin down with water, but you can actually thin down a vinaigrette as well. So normal vinegar and olive oil dressing, if you've emulsified it, you can actually add water. It won't split. And it's a good way to dilute it if the flavour is too strong. I see chili. Oh yes, actually these are the chili flakes on and the pineapple are off the charts. Amazing, it's really good. You actually just take raw pineapple, just chop it up as normal, and then the salt and the chili. You don't need to do the whole syrup situation, the whole mojito situation, although that is good. In South Africa, what they actually do is they take a whole watermelon and they inject it with alcohol and they freeze it as a whole. That's a bit intense. I don't know if I stay on. Brilliant, thanks, Max. Brilliant, excellent. Oh, listen, just on this live, and we'll find a way of communicating this to anyone. If you guys want to make any of the recipes, they don't have to be one of the ones from tonight, take a picture and tag me on Instagram or Twitter. Then we're going to pop you into a draw to win a place on one of my 5-week courses. It's online, so it doesn't matter where you are in Ireland or the Caribbean or anywhere else. Please enter. It's well worth entering. It's going to be a really, really good course. It's 31 days to zero waste-ish. So it's a lot more of this stuff. Excellent. Yeah, so just tag me. So we hope to see you there, Max. Thank you so much. Okay. Thanks, Monica. I hope you try some of the recipes. And guys, do take down the name Margaret McConnell in the Curragh. Yes, I've heard of Margaret. I know who you're talking about. That's who supplies my butcher. She does amazing chickens, like stunning, stunning, stunning chickens. If anybody has any questions, nag me. You're welcome to ask. I'll carry on doing broccoli until such a point. Paula, do you have any questions?
There's one question I have, and you haven't mentioned fromage frais.
Yes, you can now get it in Ireland.
Yeah.
I don't think most people know in Ireland. It's a bit like a lumpy cottage cheese. There's a lot of curd cheeses all over Europe. So ricotta would be the Italian version. It's one of them. Obviously fromage frais would be another. Cork would be another one. They all work. To me, they're all in the same family. And I pretty much use them interchangeably because I would always have Greek yogurt in the fridge and either creme fraiche or sour cream. I prefer creme fraiche because it's thicker, but it's very, very similar to sour cream. And I use them interchangeably. And mayonnaise-wise, I wouldn't make a fresh mayonnaise for picnic because the raw egg can pose some food safety issues. So I wouldn't. I'd do a shop bought one. And when I buy mayonnaise, I buy the mayonnaise that's made with olive oil because it's better for you than the one with sunflower oil. It's just being pedantic. It's not the end of the world. But Hellmann's now makes one with olive oil. You can get a brand in the health shop that's also with olive oil. Tastes delicious. Doesn't taste any different. And it's just a bit better for you. And of course, you get vegan mayonnaises that have no egg in it. There's a surprising number of people that are allergic to egg.
Yeah.
They're fine. They taste delicious. There's nothing, really nothing wrong with them whatsoever.
And then what about the fat-free versions?
I'm always dubious about fat-free because if they take out the fat, which is normally fairly noxious, they tend to put other things in. So sometimes it's sugar, not always. It can often be modified starch, which I have lots of question marks about. But I would always buy the full fat version of everything. So whether it's hummus or salad dressing or anything else, I'd always buy the full fat version because overall it tends to be healthier for you. It might have more calories in, but overall it's healthier for you.
Interesting.
Really. Greenwashing, what we call health washing, same thing.
Yes.
We now have more knowledge about things.
Yes.
There's a couple of artificial sweeteners that aren't the worst. They're certainly less damaging than, say, saccharin, but there's a lot of evidence to show that artificial sweeteners disrupt the gut microbiome, and that can have very far-reaching health consequences. So for that reason, mainly, I would avoid anything that's an artificial sweetener, and that tends to be in the low-fat things. You get the artificial sweeteners and the diet products.
And yogurts and that, yeah.
Yeah, so just stay away from them because of the gut reason.
Interesting.
Yeah,
there's a comment here, Rozanne, thank you so much. I'm so thankful for the many beautiful tips you provide on how to do nourishing, waste-free food preparation and storage.
Oh, thank you so much. My absolute pleasure. I hope you get lots of use out of the recipes. And drop me a message if you have any questions, and there'll be more recipes on my social media, so keep an eye out. This head of broccoli is never ending, so definitely get the children to do this, or in front of the TV. This is a TV job, sitting doing the broccoli for the broccoli store. That is worth it, kind of therapeutic. No, I did a stint in the Guinness storehouse, and same company owns Avoca, so they did all the Avoca salads. And the Avoca salads are famous, and the famous broccoli salad with the fish and the cherry tomatoes. And luckily, we were all very pedantic about the broccoli. The big lumps of broccoli, not good. you ruin what is a very good recipe by putting the big lumps in.
Is Greek yogurt better than regular yogurt?
The difference is, the most important thing with your yogurt is that it's live strains of bacteria that are in there, that it's not something that looks like yogurt, but really is just a glorified custard. So make sure it says there on it that it's live bacteria, and I'll say Alcasia, immunitas, or bifidus, or whatever. So Greek yogurt is normally a specific strain of bacteria that's used to culture it. And what happens is the yogurt becomes very thick. A lot of whey, which is the liquid, comes away, separates away. So what you end.
Now, guys, I'm going to give this just about half a minute, because I think Rozanne may be having problems getting back to us. Just to let you know that this will be available, this recording will be available on Facebook and on YouTube. I just want to thank everybody for coming here this afternoon. Unfortunately, it was cut a bit short, but I still think that we learned a lot. And you also have that ebook that Rozanne has actually prepared for you all. Just like to remind you all that Dublin City Council, Dublin City Libraries are still having online events, particularly for children's events during the month of August. And you can have a look at the www.dublincitylibraries.ie and the library events there. And as I said earlier on, if any of you can't access your ebook or have any questions about this event, you can always contact me at paula.brennan@dublincity.ie. Now, apologies again for Rozanne disappearing like that. But I hope you enjoyed it. I think we'll just leave it at that. And thanks, everybody. And as I said, you'll have the recipes that you can try at home. So I think we'll end now. Thanks very much, everybody. Goodbye now.